Welcome to One Quick Question with Infomedia, your source for answers to your questions about websites, digital marketing, and more. I'm your guest host, Michael Green, and I'm here with Carrie Rollwagon. And today's question is sort of about podcasts. Carrie, how long have you been involved with podcasts?
I don't know, maybe I think my first one actually might have been 7 years ago, but I had a couple that were smaller. And then I've been doing One Quick Question, and then I was doing The Localist for maybe 2 or 3 years.
So
It's a
7
while.
years, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a decent amount. I feel like that's the 10,000 hours to.
Sure,
Yeah.
thanks, yeah.
So here's the quick question: what's the point of having a podcast?
I mean, people think it's cool.
It's just what people think of me. That's
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
I think it depends on, for a business or personal. I could say at first, for a small business, what would be the point? Why do we have one at Infomedia?
Mm-hmm.
That would be slightly different than why I had other ones. So,
Mm-hmm.
For example, this podcast. One of the main reasons we have this is kind of that it helps sort of establish authority. I said as a joke that people think it's cool, but people kind of do, and also it shows that we can produce something of value, that if we can have a podcast every week for several years where we're answering questions about technology, even if somebody's not even say they don't even listen to a single episode, they still see that we have that. They can still see, oh, we must know something or probably know something about what we're talking about.
They likely know something.
Yes. And honestly, those little things kind of do make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this analogy works, but I used to sometimes be on the local news sometimes, the little morning show type of thing. And almost nobody watched it. Sorry if you are working in the local news. But a lot of people saw...
Someone that whoever the host is, they're like, what?
Yeah.
My 5 a.m. time slot?
Yeah.
On Tuesday morning?
Yeah.
Someone didn't watch that?
Yeah. But but I
Sorry.
would get so many comments about it from people who saw that I was on the news and be impressed by that. And that was sort of more important than the actual
content of the...
Right. I mean, that's probably about...
As long as you're
yeah.
on a morning talk show, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. It just matters that you're on the morning...
It matters to some people, but not necessarily the audience I was trying to reach.
Got
I feel like I'm just making it worse. But does that make any sense? It still worked for what I needed it to work for, even though it wasn't... and I do think the content of the podcast is also important, but to be honest, for a lot of small businesses, just the fact that you have a podcast is sometimes it's worth it. I do think your podcast should be of value too. I'm not trying to say
Sure.
But it does, even if you never take the step into listening to it, you're still getting something out of the fact that we are able to do this. Because a lot of podcasts, a lot of blogs, are 3 episodes and then never do it again.
Yeah.
So it shows people we're knowledgeable. It shows people we can follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also something weird about, I'll use another analogy that'll probably get me in trouble too. But people would say, not trouble, but just be weird. When Instagram was more of the thing than TikTok or whatever, when it was for people would be like, oh, it looks like I was doing I did a book and a small book tour at the time, and people would be like, it seems like that's going great. Everything I'm seeing is great, about that. And in my head, I'm thinking everything you're seeing is what I'm showing you. I'm the one producing this and telling you what to think. But people aren't necessarily seeing that. They're not thinking it through. They're just thinking wow, she's doing great.
Yeah, they're just it's in front of their eyes, so they think that's neat. You're being it doesn't matter who produces it on a certain if it's the morning show, you're on TV. It doesn't that's...
Yeah, and so to a lot of people a podcast is kind of the same.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily thinking it seems like somebody's validating you, because it's
sure.
Apple and Spotify are validated.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily thinking they're just doing that because I told them to. Like
Yeah.
I applied. Here's
Yeah.
my RSS feed.
Yes.
Like,
you have to
so,
be
yeah.
pretty vile content probably to get pulled from.
I mean, they do have an application process, and not everyone makes it through, but it's not. I don't know exactly
Who's
what
getting
happens.
refused from?
I think it's probably like an AI type of thing, and it
Sure,
probably
sure,
is
sure.
like how many words are you using that. I don't think anybody's watching your podcast and being like, here's a stamp of approval, like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
like you know. But but it feels like that to people. So I think honestly for small businesses, establishing authority is a huge reason.
Yeah.
And also just go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's sort of just staying relevant, right? It's just
Mhm.
something that you can do, something that you can produce
Yeah.
that keeps you in the front of the mind of the eyes that are seeing the
Yeah.
content.
Yeah. And another thing and this is a big thing that we use One Quick Question for, is it allows you to answer people's questions in a different way. So we do an episode of One Quick Question. At the time, we actually sent it as an email, which was kind of another reason. So I diverted and I took a different road, but let's go back to the original one. We have on our website, all of our episodes are available and like searchable and things. And so our sales team use them a lot. Like when they're trying to answer a question, like say we just recorded an episode about adding video to your website. So our sales team, like they'll have a question from a client about adding video to their website. They'll send them an email. They're not just going to be like, here's a link.
Mm-hmm.
Stop bothering me.
Yeah.
But they'll answer the question and then they'll be like, hey, if you want to learn a little bit more, here's a podcast on that we did.
Yes.
And that is like super useful to them because like the person feels cared for. They have another way of getting the information or a way to get additional information. But it also shows that customer, it's like, wow, look how good we are at anticipating your needs.
Mm-hmm.
We knew you would ask this question. We did a whole podcast.
We made a podcast just for you.
Yeah. So, and it also actually helps us train new people. So a lot of times new people will tell them like, here are 10 episodes of One Quick Question that would be really good. Essential
listening.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a couple of people that they were just told listen to all of them, and I feel bad. I'm like, no one needs to listen to me for that many hours. But
how many hours? Do you have like a full runtime? Like what if I'm like I got to start at the pilot episode of this and get caught up? How many hours am I?
I don't know. They're like, I guess we have about 2 years of episodes.
Oh wow.
And I mean they're about 10 to 15 minutes, so it's doable, but I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. I think just look at the ones that are interesting.
Well, I got my weekend plans. That's How does someone get started? What is the bare essentials someone needs to do a podcast, and then what would you say they need to have to do it well?
On the technical side, I'm not actually the best person to ask. I think we at Infomedia, our media team actually sets up this studio and does a fantastic job. And I am not great. Yes, they're here with us today.
Hi,
Yeah, hey, Paul. And honestly, when I touch the equipment, Paul is like, please don't.
You do try to turn it off during recording.
Yeah.
So
but I also did, like, The Localist was kind of a hybrid. That's another podcast I did for a long time. And that was a hybrid. It was just audio. I think that was a little more doable for me. If you love the tech stuff, it's definitely doable to do it at your house, in a closet, that kind of thing. And I did that with the audio. I don't think I'm the expert there for sure. There are a few like basics that I would recommend, but one of my best tips, I think, was I kept pricing out who could edit the audio. And finally I realized they were all too expensive, but I knew a lot of musicians who could do about the same thing, and they were a lot more willing to work for very little money. So
get a musician friend.
Yes. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's who was really doing my sound editing.
Some washed up bass player was
yes.
Got some work.
Yeah. It was actually Brad.
Oh no.
Development.
Brad Brad is not
He's a washed up drummer. I'm just kidding. He's
Whoa,
not washed up.
no.
He's
No.
not washed up. He's very, very good. But
He's deep in the ocean.
yeah, yes. But as far as the audio, I think there are more places now. Infomedia actually does this too. You can actually buy time in our studio so that you can just walk in and walk out. We'll do the editing and all of that stuff. So.
Who would someone need to reach out to initiate that?
I mean, you could go to infomedia.com and fill out the form and say, I want a podcast.
What a great place to end our podcasting episode.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. One Quick Question is brought to you by Infomedia. Find show notes including links to what we talk about on the podcast at infomedia.com/quickquestion. Our producer is Elena Harmon. Our theme music is by Brad Davis. Our episodes are produced by Paul and Aaron at Infomedia Studios. If you need website support, marketing advice, or you're interested in building a new website, give us a quick call at 205-823-4440 or email quickquestion@infomedia.com.